In this video, we have a simple catch can install planned that turns into a broken fitting inside of my engine block, followed by me doing about 3 times the work that I originally planned to do. And then finally, back to boosting. Stay tuned. What is up, everybody? We have another EVO video today, and in this video we're going to be installing an STM catch can. So here is the catch can. Very nice piece, and we have 2 ports on here. Drain port, and then this port is actually going to hook to the intake manifold. Now the hardest part about this is going to be accessing the bolt on the crankcase, and mainly just because there's not a lot of room in between the turbo and the actual engine block. So it's going to be a little tricky getting that. We do want to vent that crankcase because this is a built engine. It's a 2.3 liter. It's definitely going to have a lot more blow by than a stock engine with the hyper pistons where you can have a tighter clearance and all that stuff. So we want to have as much venting as possible. Some people even vent the dipstick tube. We're not going to go there. We're only running 28 PSI, which isn't that much for an EVO. So I think we'll be good venting at the crankcase and the valve cover. So without further ado, I think the first thing, get this car up in the air. And the very first thing I want to do is get that crankcase bolt off, because if we can't do that, then there's no point in doing any of this. Okay, so we got our jack. Let's get this thing up in the air. Okay, car's up in the air. Let's crawl under here and see if we can at least see the bolt. So that is our bolt right here. So I think the plan is take the downpipe off.
1 hour later.
So happy to report the downpipe is off. Getting the downpipe off wasn't too bad. We just had the 2 bolts here, which were kind of jank. It was like this. This is what was on there. Oh, it's really rusty too. And then just like this smashed up washer. So I ordered the OEM bolts. Hopefully the OEM bolts work, because they were kind of like much longer bolt and it had a spring on there to kind of provide some spring pressure on this donut gasket. And then we had to slide those off because those bolts wouldn't come off back there. And then we had the 2 bolts that connected to the cat. Those are pretty rusty too, but luckily we have the Milwaukee to blast those things off. Now the good news is, look how easily we can get to our bolt now. Super easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. Then I'm gonna see in our box from STM what we need to put there. Okay, so we got the bolt out. Wasn't bad at all with the downpipe out of the way. I'm so glad that I went with the dual port catch can, because we're gonna get so much more benefit from having this vent on the block here. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this thing. And then we'll start mocking up the line that runs to the catch can from this one. I just want to see how close the AN fitting is to the turbo and all that. And if we have good clearance there, then I think we'll start working on the valve cover and getting that ready.
Much later.
Yeah, I broke that fitting off in the block of the engine. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of me cranking it down with this large wrench. That thing broke so easily, which is kind of expected because, as you can see, it's just thin walled aluminum. So since that was broken off, I had to find a way to extract it out of there. And in order to get access to extract it, I needed to remove the manifold. Luckily, even though the manifold bolts looked pretty rusty, they came off really easy. Just a little bit of WD-40, and then just pulled the manifold off with the turbo and everything. Wasn't too bad taking that off. Luckily, Harbor Freight had an extraction kit, and it worked perfectly. So just take a look at how easily that aluminum fitting came out of there with the extraction kit.
So after getting that broken AN fitting out, I was feeling unstoppable, master mechanic. So I decided to take out those rusty manifold studs, or at least try to. I was very optimistic though, so I heated the crap out of them, and surprisingly, they came right out. Mainly due to the fact that the previous engine builder put anti-seize on them, but hey, I'll take it as a win. Now I can install these shiny new titanium ones. But back to the catch can install. This is a catch can install video after all. So here we have the STM catch can getting installed onto the transmission. It's mounted nice and low, out of sight. Perfect spot for a catch can. So while I wait on the new block fitting from STM, I decided to go ahead and get the valve cover all done and all of those lines plumbed. There's 2 lines we need to run off the valve cover, and you have to take the stock fittings out of the valve cover. So I actually have a spare valve cover that I bought a few months back that is in much nicer condition than the one on the car. So first I went ahead and took the fittings out of that one. There's one fitting on the back of the valve cover and then one on the side. Next I put the new fittings from STM that are adapting the valve cover to connect the AN lines directly to it. I put those in the freezer so that they would get a little bit smaller, shrink just a little bit from being cold, and then they hammered right in. A little bit of Honda Bond on there to seal it up, and then the valve cover could go on, and it was just a matter of building the AN lines and connecting everything to the catch can. It was pretty straightforward. And a few days later, I got my order from STM with the new AN fitting. Was very careful installing that into the block this time around. And I also ordered a 150 degree AN line fitting for that block fitting, because I was reading online that a lot of people went with a 150 degree fitting just to provide a little bit of extra room around the stock turbo placement. And this fitting ended up being perfect. As you can see here, it provided perfect routing for that AN line, and then with the turbo installed again, there was plenty of room in between the turbo and the block. Well, I don't want to say plenty, but there was enough that the AN line wasn't pinched or anything. You can see it's moving freely here. And then under, just enough room between the turbo hot side, the oil drain, and the fitting. Overall, very happy. So if you're having problems with the 120 degree fitting, try out the 150. I think that you will have some success with that. And the hard part's done. It should be smooth sailing from here.
Okay, so we got a whole sea of OEM stuff for the EVO. A lot of it's from STM. Some of it's from Ameyama, which is like a Japanese site where you can order your stuff direct from Japan. Takes a lot longer than STM. Obviously the customer service isn't as good, but sometimes you can save a little bit of money if you know the part number. So sometimes I do get stuff straight from them, although I much prefer ordering from STM. Anyway, big ticket item here. Well, it wasn't really that expensive, honestly. I think it was like 65 bucks. Is a new fan shroud. And it's just the OEM black, nice and shiny. Mine's pretty rusty. I didn't feel like waiting on like powder coater or paying for powder coating, because I think the powder coater probably would have charged me like 50 bucks, the one near me. And I figured, why not just go OEM? And it's always fun buying an OEM part and getting it in the OEM packaging and stuff, in my opinion. We got a new upper radiator hose, new clamps for the upper radiator hose. OEM with the little red on there and everything. Overflow tank. Mine's pretty crusty. It is a cast iron block, so you do get some residue and stuff over time in the coolant, especially if you don't change it enough. New hose for the overflow tank. Grommets for the bottom of the radiator. These little insulators. Mine are like super rusty because I think they're like metal, but then with like a rubber sleeve. It's kind of a complicated part for what it is. So in most cars, it's just a piece of rubber. 2 bolts for these brackets that go on the radiator. They're both the same. And they just hold this overflow line. I'm assuming where the blue is where the brackets actually clip in. Some power steering. We are going to do power steering flush on the car. Coolant. Super genuine coolant. Definitely make sure to get the super genuine, not just the genuine. Thermostat and thermostat housing. I figured why not throw a new thermostat in while I'm here. And thermostat housing wasn't too expensive and mine's kind of crusty, so I figured I'd get a new one. These should probably be over with the coolant overflow tank because this is the bracket for the coolant overflow tank. I don't know if my car has it or if mine's probably not this nice if it does. So I just picked this up and it's got a little grommet that goes on there too. Back over to here, we have a new battery fuse. Just wanted to get a new one. I always throw in like extra little stuff like this when I'm getting, especially if I'm getting stuff from STM, because if you're like over $299, you get the free shipping, which I mean, it's super toxic to just add a bunch of little shit to get over $299, but that's how it goes every time. Last thing, this is the turbo water hose. I think it might be the return hose, and right now it was just a auto store hose on there and it was old and crusty and I had to cut it off when I took the turbo off, so I had to get a new one and then some new clips because they were using hose clamps on there and I really like the OEM clips. This looks really long though, so I'm going to see how this works on there. And this is the EVO 9 hose, so it has the extra insulator on there. The EVO 8 hose does not, but hopefully we won't have to cut the whole thing shorter. It looks really long. I'm not sure if my car has the wrong coolant lines on it or what, but we'll have to make that work somehow. But that's everything. First, we're going to do that coolant hose because I really want to get that taken care of, and that's kind of an unknown right now. All this other stuff will go together super easy. So let's get to work. And the goal is to take this car to Cars and Coffee this Sunday. I haven't been to a single Cars and Coffee this year. There's a really nice one right down the street from my house, and I just haven't made it. So I want to make it before the summer's over. Summer's almost over. We only have like a few more weeks. So luckily all this stuff came. It's Monday. Hopefully we'll be done early this week. So I found out this hose will not work at all. This is the EVO 9 hose, and I thought since my car has the EVO 9 turbo, that will be the right hose to use, but it's not. This piece right here actually goes all the way back to the water pipe that runs all the way around the back of the engine and all the way up to here on this thermostat housing. So this thing actually comes from all the way back there and out, and it's like molded or welded onto the water pipe. On an EVO 9, this isn't here, it stops right here. So you have like this as like a 90 degree to bridge that gap there. I'm gonna run down to the auto parts store in this case, and we're just gonna get some heater hose like what was on there before. Unfortunately, because I really don't want to cut this line, because this is, I think this part might even be discontinued. This is the EVO 9 return hose, and maybe one day I'll get an aftermarket water pipe or something and I'll need this hose, so I'll keep it around, but for now we're just gonna run. So first things first, we're gonna get this old crusty one off here and get the new. Oh, it's still not on the car. I wanted to do a cool transition, but I found my OEM bracket. It's right there, all messed up, pressing on my power steering line. So I gotta figure out how to get that thing off of there. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I don't know if they just bent it out of the way because yeah, I don't know. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I've only owned this car for a year, so there's a lot of stuff, you know, it's surprising whenever I'm working on it that, you know, one of the previous owners did. I think it had like 3 or 4 previous owners, so a lot of surprises there. I gotta figure out how to get the new bracket on now though. Okay, so just bent both of these brackets forward. The other bracket is for the AC line, and that was actually covering the bolt. So once I bent them forward, I could see the bolt. Not too complicated, just gonna pop that off, pop the new bracket on. And the AC line seems a lot happier here too. It was kind of bound up before when the bracket was bent. Who knows how that happened, but we just got, we're gonna stick the new bracket on there. Then we got these. So much better. Unfortunately, I didn't get these bolts. I really wish I got these because they're looking super crusty now with the new plastic. New bracket down there, you can see. Try to clean up the bolts a little bit too, and that line. Much better though. And it was a little tricky. I had to leave these loose and the lower bracket loose. And then I kind of had to get that bracket in the right location. If you don't have that bracket in the right location before you tighten it, it's probably not going to line up. And I'm assuming that's what happened last time, was they had that bracket tight and then they went to install this, it didn't line up. And instead of loosening that and realigning everything, they just shoved it to the side. But now we're good to go, and the tank is nice and sturdy. Man, this thing was flopping around bad before, and it was putting a lot of stress on this too. So much better solution. Let's move on to the radiator now. Okay, so here's the recipe for the radiator. We got a OEM replacement CSF radiator. We got the factory radiator, and then we got all the parts we're gonna, all the new OEM parts we're gonna throw on the CSF radiator. The only thing that's coming off of this radiator is this hose, because I forgot to buy that. It's not really a big deal, it's under the car. This module, the fan motor, and the actual fan itself. The fan shroud, we have a new one, so we're gonna have to put all this stuff onto the new fan shroud. And when I was saying the old one was rusty, that's what I meant. This thing is crusty, man. I wish the sticker was on the new one. I don't think it's there, which is a huge bummer, but maybe we can get that remade. Yeah, this thing's seen better days. Okay, so we got the old radiator over there. Everything's taken off it. Kind of a little bit of a mess here, but we're gonna be wrapped up shortly here. Is this even an OEM fan control module? Because it does not look OEM, but dude, this thing works so well. This car never overheats. This is probably my most, I would say, consistent car when it comes to running good temperature-wise. All my other cars kind of fluctuate on the hot days and stuff, man. The EVO does so good, and dude, if this is not OEM, I'm never buying an OEM one because they're like $300. Got the fan taken apart. Kind of cool how all this is modular. We're definitely going to We're definitely going to Loctite the little bolt, tiny bolt that holds the fan on, because I don't want to torque that down and risk strapping it. God, I can't talk today. I don't want to torque that down onto here and risk snapping. Once again, expensive part. I think that's like $250, $300. So all that stuff cleaned up the best I could. It's really cool how this works though. Like how clean that line is. Like the little red dot lines up like pretty much at the bottom. And then this thing just goes so cleanly around there. And then you just line these brackets up with the blue line. Super cool. Got the new brackets on there with the zinc. New bolts. Remember to get new bolts for that. Literally the only thing. Speaking of new bolts, I didn't remember to get new bolts for the thermostat housing, but I'm soaking them in some vinegar right now. Maybe it will work out for me. Look at this crusty thing. No, it's not bad in there. Look at all the stuff that came out of there though when I freaking loosened the bolt up. Jesus. I'm just gonna have to vacuum that up. It's so bad. So this is good. We'll stick a new thermostat in there. Dude, it doesn't even look like there's any sealant or anything on there. I guess the thermostat is the sealant. I don't know. Have to read the manual for that, but I'm gonna throw the new housing on there. Then we'll get the radiator in and button this thing up. Yeah, so just got the thermostat on. Yeah, I think the lesson learned here is just buy the freaking bolts, because I got all this stuff, and even on STM, the bolts are not that expensive. Usually like a little bolt like this is like $1 or $2. It would have been so cool to have all the new bolts. Should have got a new one of these too. It's looking crusty, but it's kind of weird. This thermostat housing has this giant nub hanging off of it. I don't know why. Is this something they did for like the EVO 9? Because mine old one doesn't have that. And this one looks so much better. So I need to see if I can get this one like vapor honed or something, or restored to its original glory, because that nub's kind of like ugly. It's not a huge deal though. I mean, overall it looks a ton better than the old crusty one, but it's kind of like out of place in this area of crustiness. But it's one step at a time. I mean, this car, you know, it's been a driver. It was never a show car or anything, so it's an old car by now too. Got the little blue down there. But I also got some little rubber on here. This looks awesome. Well, I mean, it's crusty too, but the rubber looks great. Just took a silicone hose, cut it, so now it won't be like destroying my math. Because as the engine rotates, this is gonna rub on this bracket. And if I didn't put this on, it would have kind of cut it up a little bit. But yeah, now it's, for the 500th time I've said this, time to put the radiator in. Keep getting distracted. It's just too fun bolting on like OEM stuff like this. And then you got the new thermostat in there, super cool. Okay, so we had a, I don't know, setback, not the end of the world, but that 10AN line was originally facing up and the hose was running up through here, which was directly interfering with our fan shroud and our fan control module. Luckily this piece clears, which is great, because that would be a game over if that didn't clear. But STM did their work here. It looks great. Unfortunately, I didn't check this, so we have to redo that line because it needs a lot more length to reach the fitting now. So I'm gonna order up some line. Hopefully we'll still, luckily it's early in the week. So luckily all of our radiator parts and everything, all our OEM parts came early. So I do have some time. Summit is usually pretty fast with getting that stuff shipped out. So I'm gonna go ahead and order some Dash 10 from them and hopefully it'll be here in time. Okay, we're back. 2 days since the last clip. So the last clip was on Monday. It is now Wednesday. And here is where we're at. Not much progress. I just put this last line on. I got a hose from the local auto parts store and put that on there. So now we are waiting on some Dash 10 line for the vent line that goes from the valve cover down to the catch cam, because as you guys know, we ran into the huge issue last time with the radiator. So I'm waiting on that line. It's supposed to be here today. So in the meantime, I'm going to get some oil in the engine and start checking off some other items on the list. And then hopefully by the time the line gets here, we'll be ready to just finish everything up and add some coolant to the car. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of time lapse the whole thing or show some clips here and there. I'm just going to have some music playing so I can get the work done. I do want to finish this today if possible. And then hopefully there'll be an update at the end of the day and we'll be able to put some coolant in the car and start it up. Okay, so the engine bay is looking real nice still. We don't have any major oil leaks or anything. Obviously, we still have the oil leaks around the front lower part of the engine that we're going to have to address in the future. The car was smoking a lot yesterday. I think it was because of some oil on the downpipe, but as you saw, we had a successful test drive, and I'm going to take the car out for another test drive. It's currently Thursday, so we want to make it to Cars and Coffee on Sunday. And so far, it's looking like we're going to make it. I added a little bit of coolant in the overflow tank. The coolant is all the way filled up. We have about maybe 70% of this left still, but I'm assuming there was still coolant in the engine block and stuff, so I don't think I don't think the car would need the full 1.7 or 1.9 that capacity. So we'll see after this drive if we need to add more coolant or not, but hopefully everything is.